Did you know that Tyrannosaurus Rex had stronger jaws than today's Bengal tiger? And did you know that it could easily crush bones? But what other dinosaurs could crush their prey to death in one bite? Let's find out in this episode of Dinosaur Bites, Gigantosaurus garstini. This dinosaur lived in what is now North Africa. It was first discovered in 1927 by a French geologist and paleontologist named Charles Dupuisset. The name Gigantosaurus comes from the Greek word gigas, meaning giant, and physis, meaning type or form. Its scientific name, garstini, was given in honor of the paleontologist Paul Gastoni, who collected the fossils of this species. The Gigantosaurus was an extremely large herbivore that belonged to the same family as the sauropods, like Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus. However, unlike those sauropods, the Gigantosaurus had a very short neck. It was more similar to the genus Ankylosaurus, which belonged to the prosauropods. But the Gigantosaurus was much bigger. The Gigantosaurus had incredibly powerful jaws for an herbivore. But how do we know that? In 1984, another French paleontologist, Philippe Taquet, studied the teeth of the Gigantosaurus and compared them to those of other sauropods. He concluded that they were better suited for crushing hard objects like bones, nuts, and seeds than for simply grinding plants. So why didn't the Gigantosaurus use its powerful jaws to eat meat? Perhaps it wasn't adapted to hunt animals, or maybe it had enough natural enemies and didn't need to resort to eating meat. We don't know for sure, but one thing is certain. This herbivore had incredible jaws. Unfortunately, we don't have much fossil evidence of the Gigantosaurus. We have a few teeth, some jaw fragments, and parts of its pelvis. But we still don't know what its skull looked like or how long it was. But based on its relatives, we can get a good idea. If you take the size of its skull into account, the Gigantosaurus would have had a bite force of over 4 tons. That's almost twice as strong as the famous T-Rex. Imagine being on the receiving end of that bite. You wouldn't stand a chance. Tyrannosaurus Regina. The Tyrannosaurus Regina, or the queen of the dinosaurs, is one of the most popular carnivorous dinosaurs. It lived during the late Cretaceous period in what is now western North America. It was one of the last and largest of the tyrannosaurids, reaching lengths of up to 13 meters and weighing around 6 tons. Like most tyrannosaurs, the T. regina had short arms, but unlike its relatives, it had feathers. Thanks to these feathers, the T. regina could regulate its body temperature, camouflage itself, attract mates, and ward off predators. It was also one of the fastest two-legged predators, capable of running at speeds of up to 24 kilometers per hour. But what made the T. regina such a formidable hunter was its powerful jaws. Its teeth were large, conical, and serrated, perfect for catching and tearing up large prey. But how strong were its jaws exactly? A study published in 2021 used computer tomography to estimate the bite force of the T. regina. They found that it had a bite force of about 6 tons, which is comparable to that of modern-day spotted hyenas and polar bears. The researchers also found that the T. regina's jaw muscles were more robust than those of other tyrannosaurs, allowing it to deliver even more powerful bites. With a bite force like that, the T. regina could easily crush bones and tear through flesh, making it a true queen of the dinosaurs. Allosaurus fragilis. The Allosaurus fragilis is one of the most famous carnivores from the Jurassic period. It was first described by Edward Drinker Cope in 1877 and was one of the largest carnivores in the whole of Jurassic America. It lived in what is now the southwestern United States and western Canada. Just like today's big cats, the Allosaurus was a hypercarnivore, meaning it hunted animals almost exclusively. But unlike our feline friends, the Allosaurus had claws. Its hands were equipped with sharp curved claws that measured about 18 centimeters each. These claws were perfect for slashing at prey and holding onto it while the dinosaur delivered fatal bites. But how powerful were those bites? Unfortunately, we don't have any studies that tell us exactly how strong the Allosaurus's jaws were. However, we do know that it had a bite force of at least 3 tons. That's about the same as a modern-day tiger. But don't forget that the tiger's bite force is about 3 times lower than its maximum bite force. When biting down on prey, the tiger uses its canines to grab and hold on to the animal while its premolars and molars do most of the crushing. On the other hand, the Allosaurus's teeth were all similar, and they were all designed for cutting and piercing. So if we assume that the Allosaurus used all of its teeth to bite down on prey, then its bite force would be closer to 9 tons, and that's about the same as the bite force of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So when it comes to crushing power, the Allosaurus was right up there with the T-Rex. Carnotaurus sastre. The Carnotaurus was a horned dinosaur that lived in what is now Argentina. It was first described by José Bonaparte in 1985 and was one of the most unusual carnivores of the late Cretaceous. Unlike other carnivores, the Carnotaurus had very short arms, a small head, and a very thin body. It also had a pair of horns above its eyes that were curved backwards. But what really set the Carnotaurus apart from other horned dinosaurs was its incredible jaws. It had a total of 10 teeth on each side of its upper jaw, which was more than any other horned dinosaur. These teeth were long, narrow, and slightly curved, which made them perfect for catching and holding on to slippery prey. But how powerful were these jaws exactly? We don't have any studies that tell us for sure. But we do know that the Carnotaurus had a bite force of around 2 tons. That's about the same as a modern-day gray wolf. But just like the Allosaurus, the Carnotaurus used all of its teeth to bite down on prey. So if we assume that it used its full mouth to crush its victims, then its bite force would be closer to 6 tons. With a bite force like that, the Carnotaurus could easily crush bones and kill its prey in one bite. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus was one of the most unusual dinosaurs that ever lived. It was first described by German paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh in 1915 and was one of the largest carnivores in the whole of North Africa. It had a long, narrow snout filled with conical teeth that were perfect for catching fish. It also had a very long body and tail that made it well adapted for swimming. But what really set the Spinosaurus apart from other carnivores was its incredible sail. This sail was actually an extension of the dinosaur's spines, and it could grow up to 6 meters tall. But what was the purpose of this sail? We don't know for sure, but some paleontologists believe that it was used for display or to regulate body temperature. But others believe that it was used for crushing prey. You see, the sail was connected to the Spinosaurus's ribs, which were attached to its jaw muscles, so when the Spinosaurus bit down on prey, its sail would help it deliver a more powerful bite. And we do know that the Spinosaurus had a bite force of around 10 tons. That's even stronger than the bite force of a T-Rex. So with a bite force like that, the Spinosaurus could easily crush bones and kill its prey in one bite. Tyrannosaurus Rex. Last but not least is the one and only Tyrannosaurus Rex, the most famous carnivore that ever lived. It lived during the late Cretaceous period in what is now western North America. And it was one of the largest and most powerful carnivores of its time. It had a huge head, short arms, and a long, heavy tail that was used for balance. And it had a pair of horns above its eyes that were used for display or for fighting other T-Rex. But what really set the T-Rex apart from other carnivores was its incredible jaws. Its teeth were massive, serrated, and constantly replaced throughout the dinosaur's life. And its jaw muscles were so powerful that they could easily crush bones. In fact, the T-Rex had the strongest bite of any land animal that ever lived, with a bite force of over 12 tons. That's almost twice as strong as the bite of a great white shark. So when a T-Rex bit down on prey, it was game over. It could easily crush bones and swallow the animal whole. What do you think of these dinosaurs with the most crushing jaws? Do you think you could withstand a bite from one of these creatures? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.